Good morning, TNT, and welcome back to PSA TV. This is the Wake Up Call segment. I'm Avalon Williams. Thanks for joining me this morning. We have on the phone with us, he's OWTU Chief Relations Officer, Mr. Lyndon Mendoza. Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Williams. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and good morning to your wider listener and viewing public.
Yeah. Mr. Mendoza, yesterday we were joined by a telephone from employee there at this stock where he raised some concerns where he had no representation from the OWTU with the retrenchment and stuff that was taking place with some of the employees. But one employee did mention that you did represent him along with some others who accepted their visa packages. Could you just explain in terms of the other employee not getting any representation from the OWTU?
Yeah, sure. And first, I just want to put on record that the workers who did not get their payments from the visa package, the union did represent all of those workers, both in the level of having meetings with the workers, with management, and would have written letters to the company, and the issue was eventually resolved. So it was totally erroneous for the worker, Anton Ewing, to indicate that the union did not represent the worker. So I want to put on record that the union did represent the worker, and I would have sent proof to you. I'm indicating that the union did indeed represent the worker, and the workers did indeed thank the union for their involvement. Now, with respect to Anton Ewing, the issue really is representation. I think it's important that we understand what that means and the levels of representations that workers are afforded at the level of OWTU. We have representation at the level of the local branch or the local company, localized company, which is stock. Within stock workers, they would have representatives there. Workers who are employees of stock and also represent workers. The next level of representation is the labor relations department, which is manned with labor relation officers, and I am the chief labor relation officer who oversees that department. And the next level of representation is executive representation, which is a team headed by, of course, the President General, Comrade Ansel Roger. Now, Anton Ewing has a number of matters that would have started, I believe, on up somewhere around 2017. At the time when Anton began receiving what I would have called, and I want to put on record that Anton Ewing does have issues in terms of the company, his relationship with himself and the company, and him feeling that the company would have given him a raw deal and would have been victimizing him. The initial officer, which was handling the issues at stock and the issues specific to Anton Ewing, would have resigned from OWTU due to personal reasons, having to take care of an ailing family member. The responsibility was then transferred to our senior labor relation officer, Comrade Joan Phillip, who had the task of reconciling the issues there and moving forward, having regard to the sudden departure of the officer who was previously handling the matter, in addition to her existing duties. And Anton, together with other members of the branch, would have brought some concerns to me, in my capacity of chief labor relation officer, all of which, in my view, were addressed. There were issues with respect to the slow pace of the collective bargaining process or negotiations, as is commonly known. And the union would have assured the workers that we have strategized and have a process in place and explained to them why they would feel that it's taking long and what we could possibly do to make it go any faster. And for the most part, all workers are now satisfied because we would have kept mass meetings and have representation with all workers, and we are still to have more meetings with workers in Point Fortin and Guaya and other areas where workers are situated. But all workers are satisfied with the process, and we would have been resolving the issues going forward. Now, specific to Anton and his grievances, Anton would have raised issues specific to his grievances, all of which were identified and rectified, and we would have agreed on our way forward. Anton would have had no fewer than 5 meetings at the level of the chief labor relation officer, also at the level of the first vice president, and also he would have had 2 meetings with the President General with respect to his issues. It is clear that Anton, after the last meeting we would have had, it's clear that Anton has a personal issue with the labor relation officer assigned to stock, Comrade Joan Phillip. And Anton would have levied in writing a number of allegations against Joan Philip, allegations which he would have repeated on air. The President General would have, as he would always do, take any allegations very seriously, and he would have convened a panel to hear the complaint of Anton and to see any evidence that Anton would have had to substantiate his complaints. Anton was given a fair opportunity to levy all his allegations and to put all proof before the President General and the panel, for which I was a part of. At the end of the discussion, it was clear that Anton had no evidence to substantiate what his feelings were with respect to the conduct of the labor relation officer, Comrade Joan Philip. And the President General would have explained to him. In that meeting, as far as I am concerned, the most damning report that he would have levied against the officer was that on one particular morning, she would have passed him straight without telling him good morning after he would have told her good morning. That was the most damning complaint that he would have made against Joan that he was able to substantiate. Now, having regard to the process, which he was a part of, it is very mischievous and very disheartening that he would come on national, choose a national forum to tell such blatant lies and misrepresent the issues. He would have mentioned that he would have sent me emails and I would not have responded. We have gotten a response with respect saying that it will be forwarded. Anton is well aware that I do not personally check my emails. My emails will be checked by the administrative assistants in my office, and it's a standard protocol and procedure once they receive an email to respond to the sender indicating that the email was received, and they would pass the email on to the respective persons. Now, that is similar to myself or any other officer if they would have checked the emails. And this is done for expediency. Sometimes what happens is officer, we are traveling officers and we are not always able to respond to workers in a timely fashion. So these emails are checked by the administrative staff and they will determine whether or not it is something needs urgent attention and they will try to contact us if possible. But sometimes we are not able to be contacted because sometimes we are before the industrial court and we are not allowed to use phones while we are before the judges at the industrial court.
Mr. Mendoza, Mr. Anton raised also an issue where he was injured on the job and he has not been compensated and the union have not done anything thus far. He also made mention that he was demoted from his position and still no representation.
Well, representation is guided by the Industrial Relations Act and a collective agreement if parties would have that. And representation would mean that there's a grievance procedure. And the grievance procedure dictates that the first stage is that the union will engage the company in an attempt to resolve any issues before any issues raised. Failure resolution, the next stage is to report the matter to the Minister of Labour and convene meetings at the level of the Minister of Labour to resolve the matter. Failure to resolve at the Minister of Labour, the matter is then referred to the industrial court. Anton is well aware that his matter has been processed and he would have been part of discussions with representatives of the Minister of Labour, his Labour Relation Officer Joan Philip, and company representatives at the level of the Ministry of Labour. Anton is also well aware that there was no resolution at the level of the Minister of Labour, and we are now awaiting what is called an unresolved certificate to refer the matter to the industrial court. And Anton is well aware of the process to it. Anton, I agree that Anton has issues, but all of his issues are being addressed by the Labour Relations Department. And Anton is fully aware and updated into the status of all of his issues. He is very frustrated with respect to the slow pace of resolution. But the slow pace of resolution does not mean or does not equate to no representation. And he has been, so to say so is a blatant lie.
He's also confused with, attending to work and not assigned to any duties. Are you aware of that also?
Well, he did make a claim that he was not assigned to any duties. And there is a dispute that the union would have raised with respect to not being assigned any duties. And I think if you read between the lines of what he's saying, because sometimes he's very contradictory, and I would have listened to his interview, and he would have said that, yes, the union has raised the issue, and then he said, no, the union did nothing. So yes, he did raise an issue, but he also raised an issue with me approximately 3 weeks ago that the company is the company denied him overtime on a Saturday. So I am not sure. There's also a conflict in the reports he's making because he's saying that the company is not giving him duties, and then he's indicating that he was on a project, and when he was supposed to work Saturday on the project, the company denied him work on the Saturday project. So you can't have the two. The two can't live in the same house. You can't not getting duties and then not and then be denied overtime when he came out for overtime. So you're either working or you're not working. So his reports are a bit contradictory. So you normally have to be very wary with what information he gives you and then approach the company to really get to the bottom of things and what is going on. But we are investigating all his complaints, and all his complaints are now subject to trade disputes, either at the level bilaterally, meaning between the union and the company in discussions, at the level of Ministry of Labour, and some of them soon to be before the industrial court.
Okay, Mr. Mendoza, going forward though, would the OWTU be representing Anton onward due to this little dispute that's happening?
Well, Anton Ewing would have blatantly lied both on the Labour Relation Officer, Joanne Phillip, the Chief Labour Relation Officer, myself, Linda Mendoza, and the President General in his interview. And such action is a violation of Rule 36 of the union. So this has already been reported to the executive, and Anton will now be called before the union's general council, where a full investigation and a hearing will be held. And it's only after that investigation and hearing a determination could be made, which is due process, a determination will be made on how we move forward with respect to representation and Anton Ewing. Because as far as we are concerned, we are representing Anton Ewing, and Anton Ewing has publicly stated that the union is not representing him. So there needs to be a clear reconciliation between the two. And more so, what is very disheartening is that at our last meeting, Anton Ewing pledged to the President General that he will put all that would have happened in the past behind him, and he's prepared to work with the union and the representative moving forward, based on the fact that the President General would have told him, Anton, based on your complaints, you have not substantiated the allegations against Joanne, and he would have given a commitment that he would work with Joanne and work with the union, so it is very, very, very hurtful and surprising that he would come on a national forum and indicate what he would have indicated.
Yes, because he's also fearful of, losing his job and not being represented by the union, and he have called on the PSA to intervene to sort of assist him in this. But due to what you're saying here, we'll probably leave it in your hands, Mr. Mendoza.
Yeah, and you could do your checks. You could do your checks at the level of the Ministry of Labour and see if there are disputes recorded. You could do your checks at the level of the company, and you will see that the union and the company have been engaged in discussions. The union and the company would have had no fewer than 6 meetings in the last 2 months with respect to the collective bargaining process and other issues affecting workers. The union would have met with the company just this Monday discussing issues with the union and the company. So the union is representing, and the representation is continuous, because Comrade Joanne Phillip would have been on annual vacation leave for the last 6 weeks, and I would have stepped in and directly assumed responsibility of the bargaining unit, which is STORC, to ensure the continuity of representation for not only Anton but all the workers at STORC. And as far as I am aware, all the workers are satisfied with representation. They are not satisfied with the status of what is going on in the company, because the company is doing a lot of things that, in our view, would be wrong or very disadvantageous to workers. But the workers are confident that the union is working with them to resolve the issues, as we would have resolved the issues for the workers who would not have gotten their termination benefits.
So, Mr. Mendoza, it all boils down to a personal dispute between Ms. Joanne Phillips and Mr. Anton Ewing. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know if it's a personal dispute, because I'm not aware that Joanne has any issues personally with Anton. Anton has personal issues with Joanne.
Okay.
And as a result of that, he would have misled a lot of workers to come and raise certain complaints.
Okay.
The workers now being satisfied that the union is addressing everything. He was left standing alone. And then when he left standing alone, he raised this very, very, very deceitful complaint that insinuating that Joanne has a unholy relationship with the management team or the company's consultant. And even that was investigated, and he was clearly shown that, hey, you have no evidence to substantiate what you're saying. Because, of course, company consultants work for other organizations. So I would deal with the company consultants in a number of other matters, represent a number of other companies. So
Right.
you would be familiar with consultants. You may be familiar with HR officers because they would move from companies to companies. But familiarity in the sense of you exchange pleasantries, but we are not friends with consultants or company management, and our professional integrity is unmatched. And I think you would have said so in your broadcast is that you will know that OWTU is accustomed to a particular type of representation.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much, Mr. Mendoza, and wish you all the best with this issue with Mr. Anton and Ms. Joanne Phillips, if there's any dispute between both of them. And thank you so much for taking this interview with us.
Okay, you're most welcome.
You're welcome. Bye. So that was the Chief Labor Relations Officer from the OWTU, Mr. Lyndon Mendoza. He is just raising a few issues there with the phone call we got yesterday from one of the employees from Stoke with no sort of representation, which he claims, but apparently there is two sides to every story. So we're going to toss a short break and come right back to the program.